with you. And this idea of the astrological signs, every civilization everywhere in the ancient world and in the modern world has had some kind of an idea about how to describe the calendar. And Judaism is no different. And so we're going to learn about an ancient teaching from Rabbi Akiva. And perhaps you've wondered why Hanukkah comes at different times, why the holidays come at different times. And the short answer to that question is the Hebrew calendar is a solar lunar calendar, a little different from the solar calendar that we use. And so we're going to talk about just various components of that. And I want to start with one of my very favorite images. It's called the Shomeret, which means the guardian. And it's by a woman that used to live down here but has now moved back to Indiana, Jackie Olnick. So what is the first thing that you notice about this image?
She has a talus and she's blowing the shofar.
Right. Okay, so in ancient times, before the calendar, the Hebrew calendar was set, which was about 250 of the Common Era, what was done at the beginning of a new moon, shofar blowers, men, shomers, were on mountaintops, and they blew the shofar from one mountaintop to another, and they needed to see 3 stars in the sky before they could announce the new moon. And so some months that is done over a 2-day period, and some months it's done over 1 day. So here we have a shomeret, which in and of itself is a really new concept. And so where is this female figure physically located?
Anyone have an answer? Feel free to unmute yourselves.
I think it's Jerusalem because you seem to see the Temple Mount in back.
Exactly.
In the background.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
she seems to be see-through. You could see the landscape through her gown.
Right. And where is she, beside in this reference to Jerusalem, where is she physically?
On a mountaintop.
Okay, is she part of the mountain?
Yes.
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 She's part of the mountain. Yeah,
She
you can
is
see
part of
through.
the mountain, and she's very ethereal, which means you could see through her. And how is she connected to the background physically in this image? Does she look like she's a connection between heaven and earth to you?
Yes.
Yes, it does, because she is very tall, and so it seems like her head is reaching the
Right.
heavens.
She's
So the moon,
like Jacob's ladder in terms of reaching the heavens. She's a connection between heaven and earth, and that semicircular thing
is the moon.
is the moon, which is kind of interesting because unlike other religions and so forth, they celebrate the full moon, but Judaism goes from a little bit to a lot. Like when you light Hanukkah candles, you go from 1 candle to 8 candles. So there's this increase. So the moon is just before it's going to be waxing. Okay, I want to go on to my next image, unless there's any other comment about this one.
I think you can go on.
Okay. Does anybody know who this is? It's a painting by a young man named Noah Lubin. And does anybody recognize who this person is? I'll give
Colonel
you
Sanders.
Okay.
Would it be Isaac Newton?
It's not Isaac Newton. He's Jewish. And he's one of the
Shalom Aleichem?
nice try, but no cigar. Okay, he's one of the foremost
None of these?
philosophers of the 20th century.
Oh.
And
Joshua Heschel?
exactly right,
Heschel.
exactly right.
Heschel. Ah,
And the reason that I'm showing you this picture of Heschel is because Heschel talks about the holiness of time and every minute is precious and so forth. But now let's just kind of look at this portrait and what can we learn about Heschel since nobody knew who he was. What can we learn about Heschel from just looking at this portrait?
He was well read.
He was
Yeah,
well
reading
read
a book.
and
Jerusalem is in the background.
There is some, looks like there is a fire in the background.
He's
And-
two-faced. He's two-faced because two sides of his face are different colors.
what did you say? That he's two-faced?
Yes,
What would that mean if he's two-faced?
that he's a dubious person, that he might not be trustworthy. There's two sides to him, two different sides to him.
Okay.
Okay,
Let's-
I agree with that.
I think the two sides are the yin and the yang, which I think
Better
is
answer. He's not two-faced in any way, shape, or form. He's a great, great scholar. He's the foremost philosopher of the 20th century.
He
And-
believed in equality.
Right. And to follow on to that idea, can you remember an example of a public place?
He marched on the Edmund,
marched with
he
Martin
marched on with Martin Luther King on the Edmund Pettus Bridge.
No, we
He
marched.
watched
with
up Fifth
Martin-
Avenue with Martin Luther King too.
Exactly, from Selma to
I was there.
and he was a
So
great,
much raising your hands.
he was a great teacher of Martin Luther King's and highly admired by Martin Luther King. And I just want to share his notion of time with you. And if you haven't read anything of Heschel's while you're home, it's a really good thing to do. He's
Right.
fabulous. He makes the most complicated ideas simple and to the point. So here we go. Here's just a little sample. Judaism is a religion of time, aiming at the sanctification of time. Unlike the space-minded man to whom time is unburied, iterative, homogeneous, to whom all hours were like qualityless, empty shells, the Bible senses the diversified character of time. There are no 2 hours that are alike. Every hour is unique, and the only one given at the moment exclusively and is endlessly precious. And so that is Heschel about the holiness of time. And we're going to go on to the next.
Helene, I have a couple of hands up. Do you want me to call on people? Okay, no, Joan, not like that. Don't raise your hand like that, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, let me go back to that image for a
I
minute.
just wanted to say that I think that the fact that his face has two colors or whatever however you want to put it, he has part of him is he takes from the old world and brings into the new world. He is a modern thinker, but he's interpreting ancient writings.
Great comment. Great comment.
Okay, Michael Isaacson?
I was just going to say, it looks like he's a man for all seasons, all the colors of all the seasons.
That's good.
Great comment.
And he has a comprehensive view of both time and space.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. And it's great to meet you sort of quasi-personally. Any
Yes,
other comments?
Happy to have made the introduction. Okay, Nancy. Nancy, did you want to say something? You have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just did. No,
Okay.
I spoke earlier about the fact of his belief in humanity. He wanted to work with the different religions. He didn't believe that there was only one situation. He wanted freedom for all.
Right, okay.
Okay.
And then the last comment is from Eileen. Eileen Yasbin.
I just wanted to say that the two faces I saw was he has part of him is in the religious world and part of him lived in the secular world also.
Okay.
Okay. Can we move on, Stephanie?
Yes, you can move on.
Okay. So this teaching of Rabbi Akiva's, who lived somewhere around the destruction of the first temple to, which is 70 of the Common Era, to at least 135 of the Common Era. And this is the Bet Alpha Synagogue, which was probably built between 400 and 500 of the Common Era. And so you have
This looks like a clock.
the 12 tribes around the circle. You have the sun god in the center, or perhaps that is Abraham and the 4 kings that he conquers and the people convert to Judaism. And then around the edges in each corner, you have the seasons of the year. And I'm going to move on. I just wanted to show you what an ancient text this was. And now I'm going to show you a very, very contemporary image of exactly the same thing. In the center, you see a stamp. This is a piece by a woman named Catherine Cuquier, and you can't really see it, but it's a 3-dimensional object combining 2 cultures. One is where her family came from in Poland, and the other one is where they lived in Peru. The silver pieces that you see are like woven silver pieces, and these little like these little chain-like things and wraparound beads that you see are like strings of fabric, and those are Peruvian influences. So she's kind of merged 2 cultures here, and she's gone from something very historical to something very contemporary. Does anybody have any comments that they want to make about this? It's just an illustration of what this teaching might look like. And I'm going to show you as we go through how this plays off in various different ways and different things. Okay, so now I'm sure there is nobody here that doesn't know what these are. And I'm willing to bet that 50% of you at least have some little replication of these in your home. These are the Chagall windows with the 12 tribes. And very often when you see images of the 12 tribes, they can be one of 2 ways. As you see here, which are Jacob's sons, Reuben, Asher, Benjamin, Dan, Gad, Judah, Joseph, Zebulun, Simeon, Levi, Naphtali, and Issachar. And sometimes you don't see Joseph and Levi because when they went into the land of Egypt, they did not inherit land. And so instead of them, we have Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh. So as we go along, you might notice that difference. And so just moving right along, I want to show you another image. So according to Rabbi Akiva's teaching, every month is associated with a particular tribe and a particular color and a particular space that they had to camp in a particular order as they moved through. And so this month, the son who is the person that we associate with this month is Reuben, and the bodily part that needs healing or fixing or that we need to pay attention to is sight. And so this is Chagall's kind of take on Jacob's blessing to him. And I know people have their hands up, but I want to go to a different screen to go into some of those things a little further, because I think they're a little easier to see and a little clearer and probably different than anything that you've seen before. So this is a picture by Shoshana Baumbacher, who is a world-renowned artist. She lived in Amsterdam. She lives in New York now. She's lived in Israel, and she is moving back to, she's moving to Berlin. So you see a couple of things here. Notice Reuven's face, and what is the first thing you notice on all of these people's faces?
Glasses.
Glasses.
They're wearing glasses.
Okay, and then down here on the bottom is Jacob's blessing to Reuben, and we're not going to talk about that just right now. And you have the letter Het, which is also associated with Reuben, and the letter Het stands for the word sin, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. Well, I think I'm going to talk about it now. Actually, he goes into the bed of one of Jacob's concubines, and for that he gets this sort of admonition from his father. And in the month of Tammuz, we also have kind of a really bad thing go on. We have the incident of the golden calf, and then we have the world here. Oops. And then this is the middle month of the year. What is the first month of the Hebrew calendar? It's not a trick question.
Adar?
No.
Nissan.
Nissan. And what happens in Nissan? What do we celebrate in Nissan?
Rosh Hashanah.
No.
Pesach.
Pesach. Rosh Hashanah is Tishrei. And so we're at the half-year mark from that in this month. And so this is a very complicated, if you will, quite pedantic references to him. And here you have the destruction of Jerusalem and this sin of the 40 days from this sin with the golden calf, which supposedly happened in Tammuz, ends with Rosh Hashanah. So,
Helene, is that a cancer around the world, the crab?
yes, yes. So she has combined what we would call the Roman zodiac with the Hebrew zodiac, and that's kind of a merge of these different kinds of ideas. Any other comments?
Yeah, Helene, what's the purpose of the fish, do you think? Is
The
that,
fish,
yeah.
fish are always in safety. They're a sign of fertility. They're given to the head of a tribe or to a man at the dinner table. And Reuben is the firstborn of Jacob's sons. Okay, I want to move on here. Okay, so I just want to review this a little bit so that you really kind of have this in your head a little bit. So these are the birth order of Jacob's children, the 12 tribes. And quickly looking at this, you'll see I have Ephraim and Manasseh. So on the left-hand side, you have all of the children whose mother was Leah. I don't know whether you remember, but Jacob had 2 wives, Leah and Rachel, and Leah was very fertile and Rachel was barren. Okay, and then of Leah's children, we have Dinah, and I'm sure some of you read the book, Red Tent, the story of Dinah. She is a child of Leah's. And then we have kind of an interesting thing happen. Since Rachel cannot get pregnant, she gives her handmaiden Zilpah to Jacob as a concubine, which is kind of a secondary wife. It's not a real wife. She has a secondary position. Anyway, she bears 2 children with Jacob, Dan and Asher, and then Leah gives her handmaiden Bilhah to to Jacob, and he has Gad and Naphtali with her. And then Rachel finally has a child, and that child is Joseph, the favorite child of Jacob. And then she has Benjamin, and Rachel dies in childbirth, giving birth to Benjamin. And then we have Jacob's grandchildren, Ephraim and Manasseh. So now I'm going to show you something that I really like. I think it's just a really interesting thing. And so I want you to try to figure out what this thing is that I'm showing you. What would you call it, kind of?
It looks like an abstract of the zodiac, of the astrological symbols.
Exactly. And it's a little more than that. What else does it look like to you?
A Venn diagram.
No, a family tree.
Genealogy. Genealogy. Yeah.
Okay, let's
CBSI.
Let's stick with that idea of a family tree. And then usually when you look at a piece of artwork, the most important thing is in the middle. So what do you see here in the middle?
Well, it looks like an eye.
And what does an eye represent?
It's a hump.
God.
This eye.
All-knowing.
It's the all-knowing star.
Sees everything.
It's not a hamsa, it's an eye. Okay, this picture in the center is an eye. And so the eye represents God. And who is God's representative in this story?
Moses, isn't it?
No.
Jacob.
Jacob. Jacob is this figure here. And then this figure here represents one of his wives.
Leah.
Okay, very good. And this figure here represents
Rachel.
Rachel, I think Rachel is this one.
Okay, this represents Zilpah, who is Rachel's handmaiden. Oops, sorry. Okay, and then this is Bilhah, who is Leah's handmaiden.
So
And
it's the
this is-
women that bore the children, and the children are on the outer thing.
Exactly, exactly. So now I want you to look up here. This is the month that we're talking about, and you'll know some of these things. They're all in the book of Genesis, basically Genesis 30 to about 34, 49. And so this symbol represents Reuben, and these are all stories that are connected with each tribe. So this is Reuben, and this symbol is a mandrake. And Rachel is infertile, and she begs Reuben to loan her the mandrakes so that she can have a child. And he gives them to her, and there's a bargain that he strikes with her. And the bargain is that Leah, the less favored wife, gets a knife of Jacob. Whoever has their...
Please remain muted and have something to say.
Not mine.
Okay. And so this flower almost looks like a little human being. And when you actually see it, it looks like a root. Okay, so now moving down, the second son is Shimeon. And this is the story of the red tent. And this is the city of Shechem. And Simeon, Dina goes out for a walk and she meets this young prince, and he falls in love with her, and actually he rapes her. And then they try to negotiate, and Jacob is always wanting to keep the peace, and so he says Dina can marry him, but all the men have to convert, and they do. And and they have to be circumcised, and after they're circumcised, Shimeon and the brothers go and kill all the men of Shechem. Not our finest moment, but that's the story. That's the symbol, and that's the city that he's associated with. And just remember Shechem, because I'm going to bring it up to you later on. And the next tribe is the tribe of Levy, and that is the breastplate that the high priest wears on Yom Kippur, whenever he goes into the Holy of Holies. And those are all the jewels that are associated with each tribe. Okay, then coming down here, who is this one? Do we have any people who are Lions of Judah with us?
Judah.
Right, and we are all descendants from the tribe of Judah, and he's the leading tribe. And then we have the next two sons are always shown together. They're always talked about together. And this one is Zebulun. And what does this ship mean? Does anybody have an answer to what the ship means?
They dwell by the sea.
He was a wanderer.
Well, that's true. Usually a ship like this is an indication of commerce or a businessman. And so he's the businessman. And then we have Issachar here. And he is represented by the sun and the moon and the stars, which is astrology, which is how ancient knowledge was gotten in the ancient world. And really today, you need to know when it's spring to plant, you need to know when the holidays are, when it's Shabbat, when it's winter, when it's summer. And so these businessmen support the scholars, which is very much like what goes on in the world today. And then we have the tribe of Dan, who is represented by the symbol of justice, and also by this snake, which is the symbol of healing. I just want to go back for a minute. This is a very complicated family tree that we're looking at. So this is Jacob, this is Leah, and all of these connections, these blue lines, are connected to her children. And then this line and this line are connected to the concubine, and this one are, and then this is connected to Jacob. So we've gone through the tribe of Dan, and then we have the tribe of Gad. Gad is always on the borders. They're always the fighters for Israel. And there are interesting borders here. They're military borders and they're psychological borders, from being Jewish, not being Jewish, where you settle. And then this son is Asher, who, second to Joseph, has everything good. He's associated with fruits and vegetables and Shabbat and harvesting, and his name itself means joy. And this one is Naphtali, who does God's will with great speed, and he's always anxious to do whatever God wants. And just incidentally, the deer or the elk or whatever you want to call it is the symbol of the Israeli post office. And then we have Joseph, the most favored, who is the highest one. He's even higher, a tiny little bit, than Reuben, the firstborn, and he receives everything. He receives all the blessings. He's the leader of all of the 12 tribes, and his symbol is always a bunch of grapes. And then Benjamin is a symbol of a wolf, and there's some sort of negative stories that are associated with him. So this was a complicated, but I thought kind of interesting illustration of the 12 tribes. So are there any more comments about this one?
Helene, what are those sublines mean?
The sublines are...
I will get her attention.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Okay, let's have one person at a time speak, and right now it's Michael, and Helene is responding.
Okay, so Michael, if you turn this whole, or everybody, if you turn this whole drawing around, that's the Sefer Road, it's a Kabbalistic teaching, and so this is just an add-on layer, and it's another whole topic that we can explore another time. Does that answer that question? Does everybody, I can't turn this and manipulate.
Yeah, the Sefirot, absolutely.
Right. So if you know about Kabbalah, that's a connection to this. And this is kind of a Kabbalistic teaching as well, even though it's attributed to, originally to Rabbi Akiva. Any more comments?
Yes, Eileen. Eileen, did you want to say something? You can unmute yourself if you wanted to speak, Eileen. Her hand was up, but I don't. Okay, Joan, go ahead. You have to unmute yourself, Joan.
Yeah, I did it.
Okay.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I was curious as to who thought of this wonderful, complicated design. Who was the
Sorry, I
artist?
didn't tell you. It's an artist named Eric Couture.
How do you spell the last name?
K-U-C-E-R-A.
Thank you.
Okay, Rosalind, did you want to say something?
Yeah, the black line forms a triangle. Is there a reason for that?
The black lines are part of the Sephirot.
It forms a triangle on the whole between the three parts of the picture.
Right. But it's part of that Sephirot diagram, and it's just in a different color. There's like 3 or 4 colors in there, and it's just part of the artistic design.
Am I muted again?
Okay, no, you're not. Paula, go ahead. You can unmute yourself, Paula.
Sorry, my question was way back and I don't even remember, but thank you.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay. All right, Helene, I think you can continue.
Okay, so this is a more simplified version of what you just looked at, and it's by an elderly woman named Myra Weiss. And I just love it because she's an artist, and when she did this, she was 85 years old, and it's an ancient art of paper cutting. I know you can't see it, but I think it's just really more of what you would normally see in a Zodiac presentation. Okay, and now we're looking at a painting by Grace Fishenfeld, and a lunar calendar has 28 days, which tie in to women's menstrual cycles, and Rosh Hodesh, which is the celebration of the new moon, is a holiday that is given to women because they didn't give their jewelry to the making of the golden calf. And you're just going to kind of have to believe me on this. There are 28 days of the cycles of the new moon, and there are indeed 12 faces in each part of this new moon. So are there any comments about this piece?
Not right now.
Okay. All right. So we looked at all of the tribes, and this is just a quick little map of Israel to show you where all of the tribes settled. And I just think that it's really interesting. You can see all of the 12 tribes and where they are. This is just a modern map of Israel. Well, it's not really a modern map, but it's basically Israel. And you can see that originally some of the tribes settled on this east side of the Jordan, which is now, this is Amman, and this is Hebron, and Jerusalem is right here on the map. And then you see 6 other cities. And I want to just talk about these for just a moment. They are Kadesh, Golan, Ramoth, Bizar, Hebron, and Shechem. And these are known as the cities of refuge. And so in reading the Torah portion that we read for this week, there is a very interesting mitzvot, and the mitzvot is that you are to build cities of refuge for somebody who inadvertently kills somebody. And I heard just the most interesting story viewpoint by a young woman rabbi. Her name is Rebecca Weintraub, and she's the new rabbi at B'nai Jeshurun in New York, and she gave her whole first sermon about cities of refuge. And it was so interesting, and her ideas were so interesting that I want to share some of them with you. Remember I said that the Levites don't inherit land anywhere? They actually live in these cities of refuge. 3 of them, the ones that are on the west side of the Jordan, are where the Levites live. And so what you have in these cities of refuge, you can just imagine how awful you must feel if you have inadvertently killed somebody. So this is an opportunity to repent. They're secured places. The person who is running away is well cared for. They're mid-sized cities. Their teachers go there, which is part of the reason that the priests live there. And what happens is kind of interesting. This is how people around us become guides for healing and changing shame into places that you can come back into the camp. And there's another little interesting twist about these cities of refuge. When the high priest who has committed the person to the city of refuge dies, the person who is the manslaughterer, or the woman who is the person who has inadvertently committed someone's death, is allowed to go back to where they were, and they are not allowed to be pursued by the family of the manslaughterer. And so there's just a lot of interesting ideas that come up in this Torah portion. And the next idea that I want to share with you, by the way, on the last one, I didn't know who the artist was, so I'm sorry I didn't give credit on that. And another idea that comes up in this month of Tammuz, which is sort of tied to this notion of the city of refuge. And this is a piece by an artist, a very famous Israeli artist named Yoram Renan. And this is the red heifer. And so I want you to look at this for a couple of seconds. And then I want you to close your eyes for a couple of seconds. And then I want you to look at it again. So close your eyes for a couple of seconds now. Okay, and now open your eyes again, and let's do some sharing on this one. What do we see here?
Oh, the whole red heifer thing is that it can, you could either be guilty or not guilty, and it changes color. It's like a toggle switch of your own liability.
Let me interrupt on this for just 1 second. For people who aren't real knowledgeable on some of this stuff, this is one of these commandments in the Torah that there's really no logic to, and there's no rhyme or reason. And the whole story is based on the premise that the impure become pure, and the pure become impure through this sacrifice of the red heifer. So when you look, let's have some people who also haven't spoken up. I know there's a lot of participants. So
Yeah.
if you haven't spoken up, let's have some people maybe who haven't.
Okay.
How many red heifers do you actually see here?
2.
Anybody see any more?
I see. I don't know if you can hear me, Natalie. I actually see a figure in the center, a rabbi.
Okay, if
Yes.
you tell me where you see that, I will try to point to it.
Right in the center.
This?
Yeah.
Well, that would be the beard.
Yes.
Even
Absolutely.
ahead. The dark thing there is a sleeve. If you point to the right.
Okay, so you're
To the
saying
other side, you would see a sleeve, yes, that, and then the white underneath that would be a hand, and a whole figure right down to the bottom.
There are a lot of people watching.
Okay, so I want you to look at, I'm just going to point you to a couple of things and then we can comment on them. I want you to look right here, and I want you to look right here, and I want you to look sort of right here, and I want you to look here, and then I want you to look down here. So what happens in this ritual is this red heifer, there's all kinds of rules about the red heifer. It can't have any kind of blemish, and it's offered up as a sacrifice. And then what happens is the impure and the ashes are burned and thrown into a body of water. And then the impure people have to drink those ashes. And then the people who started out as being pure, probably the high priest, are impure until evening. So now, perhaps we have more than one red heifer, and I want you to look at all of these people over here, and perhaps you see people over here as well. There's a million things that you could potentially see in this image, but I want to talk about one. What does fire mean in Jewish art, let's say?
Purification?
It means purification, and the red color also, I'm going to give you a hint, is the burning bush. So when you see a bright red color, whether it's fire or the alternative is that it's blood, God is trying to get your attention some way, like what happened with the burning bush. So there are, as far as I'm concerned, endless things that we could say about this painting. And if someone wants to make any other comments, let's take a few comments. And
okay, we have a couple of hands. We have a couple of hands up. Charlotte, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I did. When I closed my eyes and opened them again, I noticed smoke, which I really didn't see before. And that's on top of the back of the heifer, all the gray. I'm assuming that's
right there you're talking about?
Right.
Or are you talking about here? Okay.
No, I'm talking about at the top.
Or are you talking about all of this, right, sort of in the front?
Well, actually, I noticed on the top. It could be all over. And I didn't notice the people on the bottom left before. And now I see so many people on the bottom left.
Right.
But that's what I saw when I opened my eyes again.
Okay.
Striking.
As you're looking at this and people are speaking, please kind of just close your eyes for a minute. And as you do that, you will see really quite phenomenal things over and over and over again. Different things, different meanings. If you were to come back next week and I was to show this same image to you, you would see very different things. And I just find this artist fascinating beyond description. He just, I love his work, I guess. And I love sharing it with people.
Helene, we have a couple more hands up. Can
Go
I
ahead.
call Paula?
When I look at this image, and yes, thank you for pointing out the people below, but I see the two heifers juxtaposed, the white in the front and the dark behind, each facing in another direction, and therefore of the good and the pure and the impure. And I think it's amazing. That's it.
Thank you. Great comment. Thanks everybody for your comments. They're really terrific. This works a little better when we're face to face, but we're doing the best we can. So any other comments, Stephanie?
Yeah, Yvette, go ahead. You have to unmute yourself, Yvette.
Okay.
You're not unmuted, Yvette. All right, let's see if there's somebody else in the meantime.
No, that's, I'm trying to tell them to tell her.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
All right, you're on.
Okay. What struck me, I also was attracted to the two heads at the opposite side. One of them has a very pronounced eye, and the other one doesn't seem to have an eye at all.
So to go back to this idea for the month, that the body part that's important this month is seeing. So he's emphasized it with the glasses. He's emphasized this with the eye, and the eye sees good and the eye sees bad. And it's sort of an internal choice of choosing good and evil. Good comment.
Okay, I'm going to call on a couple more people. Joel Sisitsky.
I noticed between the front legs and the back legs that at the bottom there seems to be a mug or a pitcher.
Is this what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. And what are you saying that looks like to you?
It looks like a cup to drink out of. There's over further to the right, there's the handle by the tail.
Oh, this
Yes.
outline right here you're talking
Yeah,
about.
right.
Okay. And that's a very good observation, because when an animal is physically sacrificed, they have like a pan, or in this case, like a cup that the blood runs into.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fran?
Okay, let me unmute.
You're unmuted, Fran. Go ahead. No, you just muted yourself. You were unmuted.
Okay.
Yeah, fine. Go ahead.
Okay, up on top of the second heifer, I see a man, almost.
Are you talking about this gray shadowy thing like here?
No, it's just to the
Okay, there's like a face here.
No, like a whole figure right next to it, on top of that red.
Oh, right here.
Yes.
You know what? This is so fascinating to me, because every time I look at this or somebody else looks at it, you see something new and different. Does everybody see this figure right here? Do you see that? I mean, it's so complicated and mystical, and I just can't use enough words to describe his work. Anybody else, Stephanie?
Yes, Beth. Beth Marks, go ahead. Beth? Beth, we don't hear you.
I'm Eileen.
No, but I'm waiting for Beth. She's unmuted.
Oh, okay.
Beth, can we hear you? I don't know. You don't seem to have a microphone. Okay, Eileen, go ahead.
I sort of see a whole line of unending people way over on the
left. Looks like a whole group of people just walking over here.
Right. It looks to me also like this might be the high priest. This little figure right here, and there's also another sort of mystical
right.
Well, obviously everybody liked that one. I hope you liked it because I think it's a really fabulous piece of art and not just because I liked it. But I think we're going to move on because I have a couple more that I want to show you, and we'll see. This is by the same artist again, and I just want to just briefly touch on where we end up on the book of Numbers, and we kind of talked about this a little bit, but when the Israelites are now ready to go in and conquer the land, and the tribes of Reuben, who is the son who is associated with this month, and the tribe of Gad, who is always at the borders, want to stay on the Jordanian side. And Moses doesn't know how to answer them. And he makes a proposition with them, well, come and help us fight. And when we win, you can go back and settle with your cattle on the eastern side of the Jordan. And then Moses goes and he talks to God. So like the picture that we just looked at, it's the same kind of thing. You need to look at it a lot. And I just wanted to make this point to tie the beginning and the end kind of together about borders and about the month that is associated with Reuven. And I'm going to skip this one. And this is just kind of a fun little piece that I want to show you. It's done by a young woman. Her name is Laura Feldman. And if you notice, we have the moon because the Hebrew calendar is associated with the moon and with the sun. And these are actually knitting needles that are the colors of the 12 tribes. And when things are going well for the Israelites, all of the 12 tribes are in agreement. And so this is a very modern interpretation of this very old teaching that we have. And I kind of like this image too. And then this is by Grace Fishenfeld. This is, we're going to look at two versions of the same thing, but these are the birth order, and then we're going to look at one with the month order. And so these are bottles that she's put plaster of Paris on, and you notice the papers that are coming out of the bottles, the messages that we hope someday in the future somebody will find or see and read. And so these are Jacob's blessings to the 12 tribes. And then here is the same group, and I told you she likes to have her bases covered. So she has included everybody, the 12 sons, and then Jacob's grandsons. And this is kind of interesting. I'm sure you all know on Friday night, if you have a traditional Shabbat dinner, one of the things that we do is that we bless our sons. And the reason that we use the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh is because and what we say is, may your sons or our sons or my sons be like Ephraim and Manasseh. And does anybody know why we say that? Okay, I'm going to tell you one more thing to give you a little clue. At the end of Jacob's life, we've now come full circle. He goes to bless Joseph, and he actually doesn't bless Joseph first. He blesses his grandsons, and just like the beginning of his life or the very early part of his life, he moves his hands and he blesses the younger one before the older one. And before he starts the blessing, he says, who are these? These are his grandsons, and he doesn't even know who they are because they are dressed like Egyptians. They look like Egyptians. They have Egyptian haircuts, but they have continued the entire time that they have lived in the land of Egypt to remain Jewish. And that is what we hope for all of our sons and our grandsons. And I just would like to conclude with sort of where we started, with another little thing about time by Abraham Joshua Heschel. It's almost what I read to you before, and it goes like this. Jewish ritual may be characterized as the art of significant forms of time, as an architecture of time, if you will. Most of its observances, Shabbat, the new moon, the festivals, the sabbatical year, the Jubilee year, all depend on a certain hour of the day or a certain season of the year. It is evening, morning, or afternoon that brings the call to prayer. The main themes of faith lie in the realms of time. We remember the day of the Exodus from Egypt, the day when Israel stood at Sinai, and our messianic hope is the expectation of the day at the end of days. And I just want to read you, it's a little off subject, but I think it's just so important at the time in which we are living that I want to just read it and end with this thought. The prophets proclaim that justice is omnipotent, that right and wrong are dimensions of world history and not merely modes of conduct. Justice exists in relationship to a person. An act of injustice, this goes back to our ideas of the city of refuge, is condemned not because a law is broken, but because a person has been hurt, and that's his connection to Martin Luther King and to the Black Lives Matter movement. And you have been a terrific audience. You have made wonderful comments. I appreciate you being with me. If you have any further comments or anything that you'd like to share, I'd love to hear that. And one, I guess, my second final thing is I sometimes ask people to tell me what their favorite images are. And if you would like to do that, raise your hand and we'll take a few of those.
Okay, Eileen, unmute.
I unmute.
Yep, you're fine. No, now you're muted. You were fine before.
Okay.
Okay.
Where are all these paintings? Where are all these works of art?
Oh my gosh, they're in different places. This piece that you're looking at is at the Jaffe Library at Florida.
Are they all in Israel?
No, they're not. They're all different places. They're all different places.
Oh, okay. I have one question that doesn't have to do with art, but what continent actually is Israel in?
Asia.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay. Beth, did you want to speak? Beth Marks?
Can you hear me now, Stephanie?
Yes,
Can you hear me?
Finally.
Yeah, I switched to my iPad.
Nice to see you, Beth.
Hi, Helene.
Hi, Beth.
Hi. Helene, I wanted to tell you when you were going to that fantastic pictorial that you see so many, many images in with the calves, you know, the opposites.
Yes.
That I was awestruck by seeing a Torah fully covered with the plate, you know, that you take off and the 2 scrolls on top. I'm not using the proper language, but you see right on his leg? Do you see that?
You have to tell me a little more. Exactly.
Okay. Go to his hoof on his front left leg. Yeah. Move up the calf.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Look at that.
There's the bottom of the Torah to me, to my eyes. Then the breastplate over here in the front. And then
Wait a
the
minute.
2.
Oh, right here. Okay.
Yeah. Right? No, up higher. Well, it doesn't matter, but we'll get together and I'll show you. Yeah, there.
Terrific. Well, I guess I don't have to ask, but this was everybody's favorite. So is there any other one that people liked a lot that you want to, should I flip back through them?
Joan, go ahead. Joan Feldman.
I would love to be able to buy a poster of the genealogy one by that K-N-E-E-R.
Erica Chura.
Should I try the Jewish Museum?
He does prints. You can go to his website. I think it's just Erica Chura, ERICKUCERA, and see if he has it in some form that you can buy.
Thank you.
It's a great piece. Anybody else?
I don't think anyone else has their hand up that I can see.
Did you teach canasta?
Somebody wants to know if you
hardly play canasta either. I used to do that a long time ago. So everybody, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Helene.
Stop my share, and just for a moment, Stephanie, thank you so much for your help. I just want to see who's here.
There were a lot more people here before, but there are a lot of people here.
Okay. Hi, Carol and Morris. Hi, Sheila. These are my friends. Hi, Natalie. These are people that I know as I'm going along here. Hi to everybody, but a special
Thank you.
Hi, Rosalind from Montreal.
Alice is holding up a picture for you to see.
Oh, is that beautiful? Turn it a little bit more toward the screen, other way around. Oh my gosh, look at that. Who made that? Who did it?
I did, and I'd love you to tell me the name of it. It's one of the Zodiac that you showed before.
Oh, so is it a needlepoint?
Yes, it's needlepoint.
It's
lovely.
Needlepoint, and I you know what? I can't see it from here. Take a picture of it and email it to me, and I'll figure it out. Look on the top and see what the Hebrew letters are on the top.
Very nice.
It's Greek to me.
And if anyone else wants to unmute themselves and say anything, by all means, go ahead now. It's going to get a little noisy, but we can say thank you and goodbye to Helene and show our appreciation. Helene, it was wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you too.
Thank
Stephanie.
you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And we will have Helene. We'll have Helene back to do another lecture. So please come back and join us again.
I was going to ask for that for another one.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely.
Hi, everybody. It's Rosalind. Long time no see. That's me. Hi, Stephanie.
Rosalind, nice to see you.
Yeah, and where's Helene? Yes, I made it. I was late, but I saw some, and that's fine.
All right. Well, I can send you a recording, Roz.
Will it be on YouTube?
It eventually will be on YouTube, but first I have a link that I can send to you. Yes, and anybody else, my email is in the chat, but Roz, you have my email, I'm sure. stephanie.o@levisjcc.org. I will send a link to the recording for anybody. And also, just let me just say that if any of you use Facebook, go ahead and like us on Facebook. You get a lot of information about what's happening. I'm hearing a double echo, but that's because everybody's unmuted. All right, anyway, I think we'll end there. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Helene.
Thanks for all your help, Stephanie.
Great, thanks so much.
And thanks for everybody for participating. I know this was kind of awkward, but it was the best we can do.
No, we make the best we can do.
I felt like being with you guys.
It was really nice.
Thanks.
And Roz, I have to say, it's great to see your face.
Yeah, well, you see what I look like. Oh my God. Yeah,
you look great.
You all look the same.
We all look the same. We all have COVID hair.
That's it, yeah.
Okay, you look great.
Thank
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.